I kind of want to name a few players if you want, Mark, that on Tuesday's practice that stood out to me. Like I said, wasn't a crazy wild practice like it was Thursday, but on Tuesday's practice, there was a few young defensive linemen that were getting a lot of recognition from the coaches that I was watching. Took some notes down. Number one is going to be Pat Payton. I mentioned him a little bit inside of our Discord of how well he looked during Florida State's practice on Tuesday, and then also a few others. Dontae Anderson, I thought, looked impressive, and he's a guy that we don't know if he's on a full scholarship yet. That might be a good question to ask when those Florida State SIDs, but he's kind of came in as maybe a half scholarship kind of guy, but he doesn't have the size yet, but he have the frame? Absolutely. Coach Storms will have a lot of fun to work with him and build him up, kind of like how he's done with Pat Payton and Chambray Jackson and Byron Turner. But definitely Pat Payton. If Coach Storms can build Anderson to what maybe Pat Payton is going into next year, that's a really good sign. But it's good to see little signs from these young defensive linemen because you already know what you've got with Fabian Lovett, Robert Cooper, Jarrett Jackson, and Malcolm Ray. Those four guys, they're there. They've had college experience and they looked really good last year. So there's no worrisome there. But what about the youngins behind them, like Daniel Lyons and Bishop Thomas? Those two guys are continuing to progress. And Coach Odell Higgins, he's an old school coach. He might not give it off that way, but I do know there's been a few of them that have had to do, I think, 7 reps back to back. Like he did the same thing with Joshua Farmer too, who's, emerging as being a potential guy that's going to play a big time role in Florida State's defensive line depth this upcoming season. And, you're seeing these young defensive linemen, Mark, starting to get into a groove here. And that's just what Odell Higgins does, though. He continues to churn out guys that get drafted and have long tenures in the NFL. So it's no shocker that he's able to develop some of these younger guys. But Dontae Anderson, I thought, was really impressive during Florida State's practice on Tuesday. And then in a minute, I'll talk about Sam McCall.